Welcome back. It's 10:25. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News with myself, Martin Daubney, and the lovely Bev Turner.
So the government is working to stop the rise in gender-neutral toilets as part of its effort to protect single-sex spaces.
Yeah, single-sex lavatories are set to become lavatories.
You don't really use the word lavatory in real life, do you, Mark?
Loos. Single-sex loos or bogs are set to become the default for new non-residential buildings and those undertaking major refurbishments.
So we're joined now by Kellie-Jay Keen, founder of Standing for Women. Kelly, great to see you as always. Just remind us how we've got to this place, if you would, first of all, where the government are having to step in and say, we need to have single-sex loos.
Well, there's a couple of routes. The first one is the GRA, the Gender Recognition Act, which decided that men could legally identify as women. And we also have self-ID. We also have a culture. So that's all that sort of stuff. But more interestingly, in 2008, the government did some research into community provision of toilets. And they recommended, and they used the word gender all the way through, which I think is why we're in this mess, because it's sex, not gender. And they use the word gender, and they say that women have more sartorial challenges when it comes to toilets. So any building of any community toilet should be about a 70-30 split for women to have more cubicles, and they seem to abandon that quite rapidly. They also recognise in 2008 that women find unisex toilets more of a challenge, and we really don't like them very much. And then here we are, 2023, just a couple of decades nearly later, and we're reasserting that. So I hope the government mean it. I don't know if they will do it.
So, Kellie-Jay, this has become a huge battleground, and anybody who stands up for women's rights to have a safe space is branded a bigot. And the trans community say, well, you know, we're not sex offenders. You're tarring us all with the same brush. You're being bigoted and narrow-minded. But what is the truth about sex offending within? Are trans people more likely to sex offend than ordinary non-trans people, or not?
Well, look, the case is men. It's men are more likely to offend and cause harm through physical or sexual violence. So I don't differentiate between a man who calls himself a woman or a man who calls himself a man. I don't think there's any difference with their criminality. However, it could be argued, and I think this would be tangible considering the sort of people that might call themselves women in prison. But there is a link between sex offending and claiming to be a woman. But that would be people that are already convicted of sex crimes in prison. So I really do hesitate to make such a sort of conclusion from that. But, you know, the problem is men. It's not trans anything. We don't want men in women's toilets. We don't want men in women's spaces. And women have the right to say that and mean it, and it be listened to.
Kelly, what's life like for you now? Because you've put yourself right at the front of this particular debate. I think what we do want to know as well, are you still planning on standing against Sir Keir Starmer in the next general election? That's one of the things that you talked about maybe doing, and constantly asking him if a woman can have a penis.
Well, I think he's sort of climbed down a little bit, hasn't he? So I'm sure there's plenty of MPs that deserve their feet being held to the fire. So the Party of Women, we've been waiting a long time for our party to be recognised, and it's been with the Electoral Commission for nearly 11 weeks. That normally takes between 4 and 6 weeks, but it's been with them a long time. So I'm very excited to hear the news whether or not we've been accepted. But yes, women all over the country, it's not just against Keir Starmer, it's against anybody who has been really gutless about this ideology and fails to recognise that women are adult human females. So we also want to go into places like police and crimes commissioners, as well as MPs and seats on councils.
Just going back to this issue of toilets, Kelly, what I'm also quite preoccupied by is school toilets, because I have two teenage daughters, and one of the toilets in their school, the main one near where they have their lunch every day, is gender neutral, unisex toilet. And so I have a daughter that doesn't go to the toilet in the daytime because she's too embarrassed that one of the boys might be in the cubicle beside her, or that they just smell bad in there because boys aren't always great at using the loo. No offence, Martin, I'm sure you
it is
do
true.
it beautifully. But, you know, even if we're not talking about safety around this issue, just privacy and dignity and feeling comfortable is important to me and lots of parents.
Well, I think look, we know that anecdotally, we know that there are boys hanging around in so-called gender-neutral toilets, unisex toilets, deciding what a girl is doing in the cubicle. You know, when I was 10 years old, I went to a boy's birthday party and I couldn't actually go to the toilet because every time I went, boys were peering under the door.
Yeah.
I don't think they were sexual predators. I just think they just didn't have any good manners. So we know, I mean, all of us women, we know what it's like to be at school and have your period and go to the toilets and hope that nobody can hear you rustling in your bag. Like, we know that. Why everybody's pretending that that doesn't actually happen and girls are really A-OK with sharing their space with boys, I have no idea, but it has to stop. And it has to stop yesterday.
Kellie-Jay, very quickly, are you hopeful that we're reaching a level of public awareness now, public figures, yourself, that we're reaching a point where this madness will end, or are you less optimistic?
No, I think more and more people are understanding what is at stake. I just think that we now have a better understanding just how far these tentacles reach through all of our public institutions and how many people are completely captured by this. So it's going to take a lot of unraveling. But, you know, it's not a case, I think, ever of having to convince somebody that they don't want boys and girls spaces. It's just about letting them know that it's happening. And so now more people know, they wake up, and maybe there will be more challenges on individual levels, like with schools and so on.
Kellie-Jay Keen, it's lovely to talk to you. I think you're amazing. I think you're an inspiration, and please keep up all your hard work. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, what a trooper.